my task is to introduce our speaker for tonight, Horst Berger from New York, of Geiger Berger, a prominent engineering firm which excelled particularly in the construction of membrane structures. Let me tell you briefly about Mr. Berger. I think one of the reasons I was asked to introduce him is because of getting too used to his foreign accent. Mr. Berger is born and educated in Germany, graduated in Stuttgart, and also studied here in this country, in Iowa, architecture and social sciences. Somehow we were just looking through his slides. I feel, though an architect, not an architect, by education and license, we will hear tonight an engineer who is very sympathetic with architecture, an engineer who is probably what they called in the old country a Baumeister, a building master who understands both materials, engineering, form, architecture, or as we call it today, environmental design. I have here a sheet about Geiger Berger Associates and with some data on Mr. Berger. And let me just quote some few things. A lot of buildings, including Marina Towers and Chicago, were really designed, engineered with Mr. Berger's participation. When we take a look at the Expo 70 US Pavilion in Osaka, Japan, he was involved in Operation Breakthrough, the attempt of introducing industrialized housing at a large scale in this country. He worked on one of the most exciting schemes, in my opinion, with the architect Lundy, involved with the Pontiac Silverdome, a number of other structures. One of the examples we will see tonight is probably one of the most exciting membrane structures, and probably the largest, in Jeddah, at the new Jeddah airport. He was involved prominently in designing the Hajj Pavilion. So without any further ado, I'm very happy to introduce to you our guest for tonight, Horst Berger.
Here we got this engineering achievement behind me. It's falling apart. Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be invited to come speak to you and show you some of the things that we've been working on in the last about 12 years. If you had asked me 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said maybe the things that we're doing are going nowhere. It's very questionable whether they would be going anywhere at that time. There were some very difficult times of designing and one thing after another, nothing ever really getting done. And for one reason or another. Never really because of the project itself, money, inflation, recession, whatever happened. And today I feel that the things that I'm showing you are one of the trends that lead into the future of architecture, construction, buildings, whatever you want to call it. I don't like to separate those out. If I have any philosophies that we get to move from this analytical age of segregation into the age of integration, taking things together, putting them back together, making them work for many things at the same time. No separation. There's no such thing as, to me, as architecture, structure, mechanical, all those. Either it's a building that works or it's a building that doesn't work. If it works, all of it has to work. And some of that we can do alone. Some of it we have to do in teams, really struggling to try to do the right thing. That's what we've been trying to see whether we can contribute towards. And in giving that Louis Kahn's introduction, I will start with some slides. I will show you first some, I go rather historically through a few things that we've done and use those to discuss what it is that we're doing with it, what is happening with it. Take the first slide. Actually, our firm started with this project, which was the U.S. Pavilion in Osaka. My partner, Dave Geiger, had that job, and he approached me, and we started the firm. And it was a good job to start a firm. It's so exciting enough. But interesting enough, what you see here, this project, is not what the design and the prize-winning design was at all. What happened was that, as usual, somebody cut the budget in half, and then late in the game, with a half a year left, people said, what do we do now? And Dave, who had made a study for the American Steel and Iron Institute on long-span structures, had encountered as the thing that he felt was the most economical thing to do, the low-profile peer-supported structure as a concept that some Russian engineers had played with. But nobody had actually done it. At that time, the high-rise bubbles were already around and everybody used them, not necessarily for tennis courts at the time. And so the technology as such was not all that far. But nobody had thought of the idea of taking a very low profile, because the high-profile structure is not very stable, and the wind will push it over. Whereas a low-profile structure happens to be getting only suction from the wind, only being pulled up. But then, of course, curvature has to do with stress, and as you know from strength of materials, if the curvature is larger than the stress is high, so you had to reinforce it with cables, and that was the whole concept. And this is a roof that is 460 by 260 feet, and it's quite a large thing, actually. And it at that time cost $4.50 a square foot. And it was also sitting in very bad soil. There's berm, and there was no form of settlement. And the thing that was the exciting thing, and this has the wrong color, but was that the space it created. Here was a huge, huge space that was free of supports, done with very, very easy means, just the upright standard there. This is during construction, and what you see in the background there are wires that are attached for the purpose of testing dynamics. The one thing we had no idea about when we designed this thing, what would be the dynamic effects on it. There was no way of modeling it, because as we found out down the line, the weight of the air column underneath the roof was heavier than the roof itself. So there was no way of judging whether this thing would bounce. It never did. That was one thing we always worried about before it went in. And we had figured out things we could do possibly if that happened. The other thing was that this is the whole roof on one truck, you see. And anybody who has explained just to try to industrialize construction, and I spent a lot of time in my life trying to do that, and all was in vain, it never worked. Has tried to see, can we do it in a plan? And has finally learned that the reason is not that architects just not designing right, and the unions are against it, and everybody is kind of in a conspiracy. No, buildings are too big to be made in one piece in a factory, and so you have to either make them in pieces, and even those pieces are very large, you ship empty volume. And so the only way, and we've known that, I guess, for several thousand years, the oldest tent goes back, that we've found in history, I guess, goes back 28,000 years. The only way to make a transportable building of a large scale is to make it of a soft material that you can then roll up without the volume. Here's the whole roof of the truck on one truck. And that picture's always been very impressive. There's one missing. Okay. Out of it, and I'm sorry this one is backwards. But if you're not so good at reading this, up there is Osaka on the right-hand side. Since at that time, this slide was made before any of those others were built. My partner, Dave Geiger, put that together, and actually, all of those got built. The air structures became a fairly instantaneous success, but they were all done with a permanent material. And that was the important thing to us. We felt what we had seen in Osaka was so impressive that we thought we should find ways of doing it for a permanent structure. The difference being that Osaka was a vinyl-coated fiberglass material, vinyl rods and vinyl will last maybe 12 years or something like that. These others were done in a Teflon-coated fiberglass. It was actually available. Somebody made and used for transport belts through chemical environments. And so we found that material and applied it to these structures. And I'll show you some of these. And I will go somewhat fast through the air-supported structures, which are mainly the achievement of my partner, David Geiger. Whereas I've concentrated on tension structures, which you will notice as I get. This is one of the early Teflon-coated fiberglass structures at the University of Santa Clara. There are two things that you notice. One is that the scale of the pillows, if you want to call them, is much larger than in Osaka. It's a different kind of design. But there's an evening shot, and you see the reflectivity of the material. There's one very significant thing that we found with the material. It's highly reflective, which means the material would not heat up in the sun. And the result is that on a maybe 80-degree day, the material will only get to the 85 degrees. If you compare that with a metal work that might go to 150 degrees, or an asphalt work might get to 160. And you see what you have to do to insulate those kind of roofs against penetration of heat into the building. Here you don't even have to deal with that because there is no heat put out. So that became inadvertently, we had no idea that it had that kind of characteristic. This became a very important aspect of the building that we did later on, the reflectivity of the material. And then comes the translucency. The Osaka roof had 6% translucency. Here we have 14% translucency. And you can see the growth of plants. And now suddenly there's something totally new happens. Now the question is just expanding large spans. But you are creating an environment in which there's very little difference between the feel of indoors and outdoors. The statement has been made in Santa Clara earlier that there's more light inside than there's outside. That's a dumb thing to say. Now it's 14%. Last time I was there, I went in and out about a dozen times to the revolving doors. And by the time you've done that, you come to that same conclusion. Which means that the eye is, of course, very adaptable to this broadly diffused light. And it really gives a feeling of very bright light. And the plants have that same impression. I made that stupid statement in front of horticulturists the other day. Maybe the plants have the same kind of adaptation that our eyes have. And they said, that's a lot of baloney. But maybe they do. Anyway, this is Santa Clara. Here we then got immediately the kind of a strange technology which you have to prove on large spans. The only way this material would demonstrate superiority to other materials would be in a very, very large application. And we were lucky to find owners who had the courage to go with us and do something as big as the Pontiac, which has been there, by the way, for 5 years now. And I do have to mention, because it comes up time and again, that Pontiac and some of the air structures have at one time or another deflated. Pontiac deflated once. What happened is, you see those steel panels on the side, mostly looking steel panels, which we didn't decide. Not that it matters, but in a tornado, 3 of those panels were cut because the fasteners, at least we believe, were not strong enough. The result was that the downpour of rain, with the wood getting soft at that end, accumulated in those edge panels and ripped through two of the edge panels and stripped them through. And because the roof was in a down position, these roofs are all designed in an emergency to hang in a free down position. And the most significant thing was that this happened Thursday night. The roof was back up by Sunday night, and the next scheduled football event was next day on Monday. I don't think there would be any other roof where you could do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that that is something you have to make your peace with. It's really a difficult kind of thing to decide about an airboat, is whether you're willing to say that part of the responsibility for the roof shifts from the designer into the hands of the owner. That's what's really happening, because you're now pressurizing the roof, and so somebody has to keep up the pressure. Because you have standbys, there are 5 levels behind each of security, and that's why statistically very little happens. We have never had any failure other than this particular situation of a tornado, which of course could go in other structures. But it is a thing that has to be answered then, because of these large span air structures. The choice is made by the owner, because this roof costs $13 a square foot. And if you cover the span, this is 560 by 720 feet. If you cover that kind of a span with a truss or a dome, you would end up with more than twice that. And an owner makes that kind of choice. And you get, in addition to, you get the light, which is a significant operational fact, because something very interesting happened when we designed that roof. We are structural and mechanical engineers. We kind of slipped into the mechanical engineering because these roofs require electrical power and so on. We did this study model, mechanical model, because there was no money. Pontiac's roof was an afterthought. Pontiac was already designed without a roof, and when we were called in, so the whole addition of the roof was a thing that was thought up afterwards. It was only done because the base structure cost $45 million, and only $5 million additional money was given to the roof. And the mechanical system, only $1.8 million, would handle the whole situation. No air conditioning. So we studied what body heat would do, and this is a simulator in a sense. You see those heating plates simulating the body heat. Moving air through, we indicated that we found that the temperature would no longer be more than 5 degrees above the ambient on the inside. We left out a very important factor that we did not consider sufficient, and that's the effect of the large volume, the effect of the passive storage of all this concrete and the crown, and the effect of radiation out through the 8% roof skin. And in fact, in this building, throughout its 5 years, the temperature at the plane level has never been above 78 degrees, even on 95-degree days, because the warm air moves up to the top, radiates out in the night. 1 day of sun radiation is never enough to heat up this very large volume. And so it becomes a very interesting environment that is self-regulating, and it functions extremely well. So while we left space next to the blowers to maybe in the future put refrigerators, they will never be there, they will never be needed. So this is a very interesting aspect of environmental use of this structure. That's the space on the inside, and you see how huge this thing is, and the light that you have. The light level is 8%. It's tremendous. And you see these baffles, let me explain those up here. The things that hang up there look like mattresses. That's what they are. They are a sound dampening device that acoustics consultants put in. And you get a roof that is more than 200 feet up, because sound reflection becomes potentially a problem. the spaces come out so well that they've recorded counters in it. So it functions extremely well. Got a number of structures since. These were kind of austere things. This is in South Dakota. But that is a structure that we did a structure in Northern Ireland. A football field, 18,000 seats, all the facilities for a college, maybe of the size of this university, and for $6 million. At the same time, this structure was designed for South Dakota and went out for bid. Not this structure, but a structure for this facility, conventionally designed, went out for bid at $11 million and was then redesigned with our assistance and built, as you see it here, for $7 million. This kind of technology, it's not only this growth technology, but thinking through all the components and selecting whatever is the easiest to do and the one that does the most things at the same time, double use of everything, under the seat is the return of the air, and all of those kind of things. Twin team, I'm not too fond of this spitting structure. I don't think that really was depended on so much on the material used. But the light is important inside, you see. You can play ball inside and the ball never disappears. You may recall that the Astrodome had a translucent roof initially, and it had to be painted out because the trusses interfered, and the visual noise was such that the baseball would disappear and people could play it. Had to paint it out. It's opaque. But with just cables, it's no problem. The ball never disappears. Really, it's a uniform sky over it. And simply one of the most recent, the multi-use facility, there are two of those, one in Gainesville, Florida for the University of Florida, another one in Tampa for the University of South Florida, an air-supported structure in the center, and the tension structure is around the perimeter. And the architect is CIS. You can see the hand of an elegant design on it. This is a model. It's not a column in the middle. This time is mirrors. This is a quote. And here's a picture of the structure as it is almost complete. It will be complete in a month or so. Air-supported structures, as I said, can cover very, very large spans. And their cost is practically independent of the span. That's a significant thing because anybody who's tried large spans knows that the cost of structure goes up with about the third power of the span. So when you move from 500 to 1,000 foot span, you're going to get 4 times the cost in a conventional structure, a truss and a dome. Here you have no change to speak of. The only component that goes up is the cable. The fabric gets a little cheaper. Actually, the ring gets a little cheaper per square foot. So as long as it's doable, the question is how to erect it. The question is how to keep it up, how to keep it above people's heads to be sure that nothing can happen to an air structure. But potentially, in a very bad climate, an air structure could encapsulate very huge spaces. Here's a concept of an 8,000 foot diameter thing, and I always love one feature. If you see the right-hand side over there, that sailboat, I love that one. Inside an air structure. Jumping again, moving backwards. My background is engineering, and this is one of the first things I ever did is design bridges. And as I get older, my interest in bridges is coming back. It's the first love. There's something about the purity of bridges and the domes and things of that nature. Cable hooks, I explained at the dinner time that I was involved in the former Severance in New York that was doing the early two-way cable net structures. And This is one of the things that I call the missing link. We did all those things in the 60s, where we did one at a time special structures. And it was very fascinating. And it was very difficult. And it was a terrible thing to do. Because, first of all, do you find a contractor who can build it? And when you find one, how does the owner ever get anybody to repair the damn thing later on? And who has the arrogance to believe that you will not make so darn many mistakes when you do something the first time? And there's no learning curve on this time. And yet that 60s bubble period had a tremendous impact because so many ideas were generated with which one can do something later on. This is a structure in Hartford Unitarian Church with Victor Lundy, and I spent several years in joy and agony with Victor Lundy doing fascinating and terrible things. This is a cable-supported structure on concrete walls with a wood deck, tongue and groove wood deck with spikes in it. And I remember the day, this was actually taken only 2 years ago, and I have to say, and I'm very pleased with that the owner and the building committee and the minister are very happy with that work. They've done a bit of fixing, as you can see. It's been relooked in some places, but Hyperland, Hyperland roof on it. Victor made it tough. The surface is kind of striated in levels, down one more, up one more, to make it even a little more difficult. But I remember the day we opened this, I went up there for the punch list, and the minister was sitting there with about 20 books on his lap, and it was in January. There was some ice on this thing, and there was wind going, and it made creaking noises like an old boat. And every once in a while, a piece of ice would come roaring down this thing, and he would say, "It's alive!" And I said, "Gee, Victor's done it again. I wish the thing was dead." First tension structure I designed was this little arch-supported thing, and you see where it comes from. Obviously, there's a concrete engineer's work that was used to launch it. But it had a few things going that I felt were necessary. We had learned at Sedgwick that the structures that were successful were so-called closed structures as compared to open structures. Open structures being those that have loose ends to tie things up. Of course, those aren't really integrated anymore. Here, there's a dome. You see the thrust of the dome being pulled together by a little tie that goes in there. Then you get the triangles, the valley cables go to the bottom of the triangle, and actually there's no loose horizontal force, it's just a dead weight, which is almost nothing. Yeah. The idea that we had, and we had a patent on it, was that we would make a flexible arch. Same principle as with the umbrella. Right? And this is a little structure that we put up with a bunch of students at Columbia University, and it was up for commencement day. And the whole idea of the flexible arch survived 4 days after commencement day, but finally, the thing, we found it down, and the guard told us how it happened. There were 3 kids who came every evening and used this thing as a trampoline. And by the 4th day, they got so cocky, they climbed a white Indian file, and they got into the flattest part of that. It's only a 3/4 inch aluminum arch, and it slipped right through. And what it said very clearly, and to maintain that from now on, you just don't make a flexible compression member. It doesn't work, you see. Because the compression member, when it gets under load, loses stability. It gets worse. Its capacity to carry load gets worse because it gets flat. The cable, when it gets load, gets more curvature, and its capacity to carry load increases. So in a tension structure, one principle is that the curved members are flexible tension members, and the compression members are straight and as short as we can get. And that was a lesson from that end of flexible arches. That is actually what developed out of them. One day, after the second gin and tonic on the plane, that's when I get my best ideas. I was looking at a Bucky dome in the popular signs in sold for housing. I said, what a dumb thing. How, you don't get any curved furniture. Why a doll? Can't I take my octagon design that I have and put it in the square? And I made a little sketch, and the sketch looked absolutely beautiful. Until I built a model, and it never worked at all. There's 4 arches, so there's 2 arches over the cross on the square that led to a valley gable was absolutely straight. And there was just no curvature. But I flipped the arches around into cables, and short of having some compression members that hold the thing, we get into this structure. And that has evolved a total new species, if you want. That's a structure that was up for a press conference in Philadelphia in 1976, before the opening of Bicentennial. And I said, please put it up in the grass and put some sun anchors. And well, they didn't. Standing there with nothing. There's absolutely no anchors, no foundation. And it demonstrated what I said it would do. It would balance the forces. It did. Except there was a 30-mile wind going, and the chairs were falling over. And I saw this thing in my mind lifting up and flying into Philadelphia. Out of that came a structure. That's the same principle, absolutely the same principle, with a center roof that is operable. It could be closed and opened. It's a structure we designed 300-foot diameter for an arena in Venezuela. It was never carried out. The government changed hands at the wrong moment. But then years later, there was the first real application of this thing. This is a model. That's the most difficult model ever made. You can see that why we just had to get things in and out. This is a little picnic shelter, picnic pavilion for SeaWorld in San Diego, 130-foot diameter, and that has been up a little over a year now, and it is, and it's sitting on 50 feet of Baymont. The reason I had to close that structure so tightly is that we were sitting on a bad spot, and we didn't want any impact on the settlement. You see, if you have a tension structure where there's a pole here, and then you have an anchor over here, if you get differential settlement, you reduce your stress, or you increase your stress, you hook your structure. And so there's a complex kind of application of this structure. And that's a little fish idea of it. Now, those rings you see there, those bad rings, they're the craziest things I've ever had to do. These are sprinklers. The building department of San Diego made us put sprinklers in these structures. It's a non-combustible style. This is a structure that is, this is a structure that's under construction now, 300-foot diameter. It's a new department store for bullocks in San Mateo. And that will show this principle in a very large scale. A very exciting space will be up there by next spring. And finally, that thing is 900-foot diameter. I won't tell you what it is. It's still a secret. Okay. Let me go back now. The air-supported structure. The principle of any of these membrane structures is that you have to create stability in a totally new way. When you build a conventional structure, the main standbys that you have to get stability is gravity and rigidity. You have something that has weight, and you have something that has stiffness. And that's usually what you have in all of the building materials, all the building materials that you use. Generally, the more ancient, the more you work with powder. The old stone arches, largely powdered, some stiffness. And the steel beam has rigidity. You take a piece of fabric or a cable, there's basically no weight. It's insignificant. Leave it out. And there's no stiffness. So what do? The only thing that you have available to you is things that in other structures we've used as kind of improvement, as embellishment, as doing a little better. Now, there's curvature and stress. In Very rarely do we use them both. Curvature we use, actually in a stone arch you do use curvature, and you use the stress that you build up in the weight. And you do that in all of the stone structures that you may find in a Romanesque church or a Gothic church. They've used those kind of things. The concrete shell goes probably the furthest in using shapes as a means of gaining strength and being able to reduce the weight, but you're still using the rigidity on it. And then you get maybe to a sophisticated animal like a pre-stressed shell. Then you're also using stress, internal stress. But those are the only things you now have is curvature and strength. It means in an air-supported structure, you're a little better off. You use air pressure upward, and I call it pseudo-gravity. It has the same effect as gravity upside down. Because you put in a load on it, and then you curve the structure against the membrane against it. And the result is that since you have a load in one direction, the curvature goes in both main axes in the same direction. We call it a synclastic shape, because both have the same kind of curvature. Now, when you get to a tension structure, you don't even have that anymore. You get nothing. You just have the curvature. What you got to do now is you have to curve in one direction against the other direction, an anti-plastic shape. You see, when you look down the valley of this structure, it has an upward curve, and you look across the valley and have a downward curve. So when you think of a strip of fabric going across in the one direction and a strip of fabric in the opposite direction, there's two intersecting curves that pull against each other. The one holds the other in place. So what you have to have is curvature and then a little bit of stress so that they stay taut. And that's really the whole principle. And that's what makes it, on the one hand, so fascinating and on the other hand, so difficult, because you do have to have the anti-plastic curvature. So one of them always has to go up, one of them has to go down. How do you now integrate that with support conditions and edge conditions? That's what makes the structure. And what you see is what you get. There's no way of cheating. The thing just is skin deep. And there's nothing to hide anything inside. You've got to make it with a curvature. And it gets a little rough because you have to have ideally equal stress throughout the thing in order to utilize the material. You see? So now your curvatures are actually limited in terms of what kind of curve. This curve in this direction has to respond to the curve in the other. As I said before, arches are actually no-nos, but here we are. And we are back to the arch. And the arch will always stay because the arch, as I get older, I find that the structures fall into only two categories. And there's the beam or the arch. They're all of the same nature, in-supported things. We have the nature of the arch and the beam. They're supported in the edges. And the arch is an excellent way of an in-supported thing because it goes up in the middle part, it is low at the edges. It makes a great space, you see. And so what we're doing here actually is we're putting arches under it. I finally realized that. And this is a model, stretch fabric model. It looks fabulous, but it's a little model stuff. For a Bullock's department store, the first one we did for that kind of application. And I finally decided that the arch then should honestly be by itself, and stand up by itself. The fabric is simply pulled over, and no dependence of the arch on the fabric. The fabric could drift, you could do anything with it, the arch could stand there. So that's the question. The arch is only the support member in this case. And at a short span, that's quite doable. Here's the thing in place, has the inside space. I'm sorry, there's a spot. It's not quite as yellow as this. It's really almost white. This side looks very heavy. These are wood laminated arches. And for this kind of a span, they're just a 96-foot span. And it's a small structure. Again, the store was already designed. When we got called in, the owner wanted to try this kind of thing. We said, let's do only a partial lift. And that was very good, and it was also very bad. The bad thing is that the rest of the still looks terrible because this space is very, very tiny in the light. And this has the double skin in some areas, single skin in others. And the space truss, I've always said, is a Freudian act by the storage designer to cross out. You should have seen when it was black, and later on it came to yellow. When it was black, it really looked like crossing out that light over here. But it's become a very exciting feature. And as I said, we're now doing a full-size store with a kind of look. This is in San Jose. Oak Ridge Mall in San Jose, Bullock's department store. And the other one is in San Mateo on Mariner's Island. It's the second one. And we hope to do some more. And they're all very energy efficient, these stores. First cost, very difficult to get the first cost down to conventional costs because these department stores are built with bar choice, 32-foot unsanguine crates, the cheapest thing you can think of, $10 a square foot. The look like this costs you, no matter how clever you are, it still costs you $15, $16 a square foot. In a 10-year life cycle, we're ahead of the game in that time. We did an intensive study for federated department stores in 7 cities of the United States. So far, it's not quite fair because we used the same prototype design for all the others. But it was very clear that for this kind of thing in the Sun Belt, the way ahead, as we get up north, we're doing all right. But as we get up further north, unless we find a way of doing translucent insulation, we are in the negative at this moment in terms of total energy. Because if you have to eliminate the light, then you have a problem. But we're working on that right now with an insulation material that is very similar to what you do with your packaging. You've seen those little bubbles that you use as a packaging material. And that will really do it. And I think for the next year's development, we'll be able to insulate and still bring the light levels. We have to sign an office building for Herman Miller, the furniture people in Holland, Michigan. And we're just doing all right. Especially when you get a very large span, there's just no other thing than the arch. I tried everything in the world for this structure, which has a 540-foot span. It's a baseball arena in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, and with an existing, the wood model up front is an existing thing. And masts and frames and so on, just to do it. There's no way of getting what you need for baseball is you need to be able to hit a ball up 200 feet and not hit the roof. So what we decided for was a semi-sphere that has a 200-foot radius. So this arch is 300 feet high. So if you want to hang a roof now, you see, one curvature goes up. Right? So if you point support it, then those points would have to be even higher, you see, and it just became monstrous. So here the arch, though it is expensive, always an expensive item, was getting a solution. And unfortunately, again, that wasn't built. This is a very recent one, actually, it's only 2 weeks old. Well, we didn't get it, that's for the spruce goose. Been chasing down Mr. Hughes' flying boat for the last 3 years. That was shifting from one owner to another, and they didn't want to save it. It's an airplane that has a wingspan of 320 feet, and that's what the structure is to fit in. But it's going to go wood because they don't like the translucent. The show people how to play with light. Everybody sits there in the dark, and then they play with light. If you've seen this plane, you've seen the 747. The 747 has a 180-foot wingspan. So you can imagine a 300 feet got involved with an outfit called Great Adventure, and the totally crazy designer who was putting this thing together, he wanted a bunch of tents. And we had, as usual, only a few weeks' time to do it. And my concern was, I said, I just don't know how to get this shape, because you got to be. So I played around first with some cardboard model, and I said, what I could do is down the middle, I could make an upside-down laminated arch, and then I get 4 hyperbolic parabolas. See what I mean? If I take the mid-lip here, and I cut that out of cardboard, and I stretched some fabric over, and what the fabric did, it never touched those arches. And I said, hey, I don't need them. Now that I know I don't need them, I got to find a way of doing it without them. But the problem was, how did I find the shape, which is an equilibrium? And this is a polar coordinate system. When you try it to see whether you can get these things in equilibrium, you end up with quadratic equations. And no computer can solve hundreds of quadratic equations for you. And then I tried it semi-perfectly. I said, gee, that's always my approach. If I can't do it, I play with numbers and with pictures. And gee, in 3 or 4 steps, I could get this thing into equilibrium within a few inches. I said, if I can do that, must be a way of doing it on computers. So I solved the thing for one spot at a time in a very simple way, and I went from one node to the next around the ring. And I said, gee, let's put that on a computer. I got an argument out of my computer pin said you don't have, this is an iteration process. He said you don't have a convergence criteria. So just forget about a convergence criteria. And it worked beautifully. Now, it's very simple math, and this is the result of it. This is actually the picture that shows a cable net in equilibrium. And we got it together in a few weeks. And it was the beginning of all the other things, including generative DC, because we had to find a way of generating the shape. You see, it's a totally new problem that you have. Normally, you create a shape, and then you just analyze the stresses that go with it. And if it just doesn't work, you change the shape a little bit. But here's the opposite thing. You actually put in a set of stress configuration, if you want, and you find the shape that goes with it. And if you don't like the looks of it, you change the stresses and really run it. It's kind of a reverse way of doing things. And that's a little structure that came out of it, you see. And you can see it very visually. I actually have to show you the amount of construction. And there's the wrinkle anywhere. And you see exactly the shape that we had. And the fact is, we were surprised when we got this thing up. We had a little jack at the top. We put the force in with the jack. And when we had the right force, we were within about a quarter inch of where we should be. And I said, gee, this is impossible. But the statistics have helped, because all of those soft things, the little arrows that must be there for fabrication, they kind of even out. You see, because you're doing 24 panels, and you add little units, subtract the little units, it comes out so close to something. And those structures are now, they were done and finished in 74, so they've been there 6 years. They're vinyl-coated polyester, they're not really common. But they function beautifully, and they've been through 85-mile length. Out of that, we jumped immediately into that. So we discussed my friend Bill Morgan today. Bill Morgan came to me shortly after that, and we talked about an amphitheater. And I never forget this meeting, because he said to me, you know, at the end of our meeting, and I haven't really done anything significant, and he said, you know, but I want to get Toyota involved somehow. And I said to Bill, now, either it's Toyota or it's me. And I don't know how I got the guts at that time to say that, because I have nothing to demonstrate. We did this thing all with that little program that we had. And again, unfortunately, this is in Toronto in Miami. It's a large project. And it failed over a month that they flooded 4 weeks before we went under construction. And just a model, 6,000 seat amphitheater. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. Bill, I only remember Bill saying to me, don't make it mechanical. And I said, gee, how do we make it that it becomes repetitive and yet it doesn't have a feel? dull and repetitive, like the ancient almost. And that's what came out of it. One of these days we're going to do it. And then came an opportunity that was tremendous. There was the bicentennial. And I can't tell you how many bicentennial designs we did, but in Philadelphia we did actually, we carried out, I think 7 or 8 different shapes. And how we all managed to do them all one winter, I don't know what we did. And this is one of the pavilions. You see this little line of each side. And this is the pavilion on Independence Mall. And here we have developed a new program, and I actually found that I was over in a conference in Germany, and in connection with the stadium for the Olympics in '72, the Germans have developed a program for cable nets. As you may know, Toyota would do models, initially soap bubbles, and then he would do wire models. But even the wire model would not be really accurate for the purpose of stress analysis, because it will bomb out at you, because the stress analysis will only work if what you start out with is an equilibrium. And so the guys at Stuttgart University said, what do we do, and how do we get a shape that doesn't violate his, and yet is easy to generate? And what they found is a method that used an approximate shape as a start, because they could measure those wire lengths. And the approximate stresses an approximate shape as a starting point, which then gets into the final shape and final stresses. And the way I can explain it very simply to you is if you make a knit out of rubber bands, and just make them all a little short, and you pull them over a few support points so that they have to just get a little longer to fit. Then they will stretch out to just one particular shape. There's no 5 ways in which it could fit, just one way it could fit. And that's the same method. Actually, this program mathematically does exactly the same thing. It means if you made up a network that is not correct, all you do is you stretch it. Except by computer, you have now the freedom that your rubber can go 2 ways. You can make it shorter or longer. And generally, with a little bit of skill, you can make up any shape that you want and be only 5-6% off even the first time around. Because then you find ways of improving that condition even mathematically. And that is a program similar to what I've done first, but more sophisticated. And here we use it for the first time. You see, the radio cables are no longer going straight; they're going curved across and up to the other side. And this is the first application we ever did, and it works just beautifully. Then we got into other things. This is after the bicentennial. This is a little, it's not so little, it's a structure in the Parks Department in St. Louis, covering a skating rink in the winter and exhibition tennis and concerts in the summer. And here we got away from radial cables altogether. We said, let's see what the membrane can do. And there's just an edge cable going around, being these scallops. And then you have a ridge cable going up and down and no radials going through. And it makes this very interesting shape. These masts are 110 foot high. That was the other thing we tried to learn is how do we most elegantly and most economically make long compression methods, because you do have to get to a support line. You see the guys climbing up, they just finished tacking. And I remember calling up the site wanting to talk to the guy, and they told me, you can't talk to me now, he's on top of the mast, as long as he come down. Well, I got to the site and I said, okay, why don't you go up? I got up halfway and I quit. When you get diagonals that are 7 feet long and are made of 1 by 1 by 1/4 angles, and you get there with your knee on a 95-degree day, I tell you, by the time you're 55 feet up, you quit. Okay, there it is. It looks a little bit like the was always intrigued with upside down tents. Why only up tent? And just turn the thing around. Because then you don't need to put a mast up, it's just hold the periphery. There might be applications. One we did, and that was actually the only one that Bill and I ever finally finished, Bill Morgan. That's his, if you know Bill Morgan, he likes earth structures. Behind you see the steps of this dual kind of office complex, and we did this upside down structure. It's not quite stressed in the structures, foundation looks ugly. A real interesting application was this one, where the sign of a condominium, tennis condominium, required a roof, and these architects asked, could you put a roof over? And we were already 6 stories high. And we said, tennis, you don't need 60 feet. So this time in Florida. And so we said, okay, let's use the edge and go down inside. It makes a funnel shape. And there were 2 interesting things that came out of that. And again, this was a developer who at the time couldn't get the money together. We had a lot of trouble during that last recession. I figured it. But that was interesting. You have no masts at all. The buildings are strong enough with the roofs as basically a support beam. 2 things. One is that basically there's no load on that roof. There's no wind that ever creates any load. Neither suction nor damage, just nothing. And down in Florida, getting the snow up. So it's much easier to take water out in one point than along a periphery. You need gutters and ways of collecting water. Everybody's scared about taking water out of the point. They say, hey, that's going to run into the building. Well, it's much tougher to go along the whole periphery and try to collect the water. And the other thing was that actually by closing that space, creating these tennis courts in there, the total energy consumption of the building went down. So we had an additional huge space that was not air conditioned as such, but partially air conditioned. We only used the waste of the buildings, air conditioning for that. Yeah. Once you can do one tent, of course you can do a multiplicity of tents. It's all built up with computer actually. These particular ones. This is made up of little great adventure tents. Draws the info piece from Miami. We made this paper. But the reality came later with Kevin. And here's a huge roof. And I'll show you later along with the person and you get a feel of how big this thing is. This came directly out of Philadelphia. So that a young architect who worked in construction Philadelphia laid down switch to SM, and that's how the contract started. And instead of the idea initially of doing shells, concrete shells, for this very large airport structure for the Hajj pilgrims, this is a structure where the pilgrims are going to make a switch from planes into buses. I think that takes something like 20 hours for them to do, because there are, I think, 80,000 a day coming. So 47 a day, a load of people in an enormously hot climate. So the idea is to give some shelter and protection for the people. And this, I understand, was a hard point, and there was Pascal of SAM, which sold tents to this is in Mecca. They have these tent cities, but of course they didn't want tents, they wanted modern architecture, which meant concrete tents. But that was the structure that evolved from SAM as a design, and at that point when that evolved, I was no longer involved, actually, totally out of the picture. And this is the structure that Pascal and his architects in Chicago designed with some involvement of Gordon Bunchaft. And you can, I think, see the scale of Gordon Bunchaft's like the linear approach to things. the only complaint I have with the appearance is that basically tension structures are very gentle planes. And this is a very kind of demonstrative, noisy thing in a sense. Anyhow, actually this drawing doesn't give it the right scale because the 747s of that trying too large. The thing is 4.6 million square feet, which means 105 acres. Each of those tents is 150 by 150 feet, and there are 210 of those tents, 105 on every side, and each module, of which there are 10, has 21 tents. 4 of those modules are completed this way. We got back into it because it turned out to become a design construct with pre-selected bidders, and we ended up doing the design of the final design and engineering of the structure drawings from a carbon mountain. One great opportunity was that finally here was a project large enough to be able to afford to study the things that we wanted to study. There was no time because the thing was actually built while we were designing it. It was crazy from that point of view. Never had anything as one. But we could do things, and here was a dynamic wind tunnel test that showed fantastic agreement between our computer analysis and the actual testing of the wind condition. Secondly, it finally put to sleep the question, is an edge catenary stable, or is it going to start vibrating? And because it wouldn't vibrate, because it was stable. But it had to really be demonstrated in the test. Because, it's not so clear. If anybody looks at it, it does it the catenary. It's just a cable hanging up to a piece of copper. Would that start developing oscillation? So the main reason it doesn't is that there's no mass connected to it. You need mass looking up that way. And actually, there are many damping factors. Fabric is non-linear. But that was one of the most important things because unless you can find inexpensive ways of supporting the edges, there's no great economy. So an edge catenary is an important thing. And then we built a prototype. That was part of the contract. And here are 2 tents that were built in Crandall, Ohio. And with simulated edges, these are the edge simulations that you see. I'll show you the picture on purpose of this side of the edge simulation. You see a guy walking over it, gives you a feeling that this thing has some strength. You can walk around it. And this structure is instrumented, as you see those sensors in here. There are load cells in every cable, you see. And all of those load cells were hooked up to a computer. And every 6 minutes we could read every stress, every one, and compare it again with a computer analysis. And again, though we have no doubt about our computer analysis, it just is tremendous to have gone through it and compared and find that the discrepancies were never more than 2 or 3%. So then you get some confidence of what you're doing, because any mathematical approach is an abstraction. You've left something out, but has the leaving out led to things that you're not presenting correctly? And so it's a tremendous learning experience. And you're learning by working day and night, and I haven't really any time. But, because while this was going on, there were already complicated components for jitter, because and here's some photographs of jitter, and these are all done in, I took those pictures in February or March. So at that time, only the first module was up and not entirely stressed, and the second one was being put together. As I say now, I have 2 fellows out there, and they tell me you can't believe it, because now you get 4 of those things working. It's just a huge, huge space. The pylons, in this case, this is as open a structure, that's why it's not a very economical structure. And told you, the closed structure is really much more useful when you tie up the stresses. But here, all of the stresses go to these edge supports, which are actually Vierendales, which is not a very efficient idea. Money was not the problem of that. Total project is $180 million. In order to make the thing work, we separated the rings in a lower and upper ring. The upper ring hangs from suspension cables off the pylons. The lower ring is connected to the tents, which are put together near the crown, and they're then raised up. All the 21 tents move up together. By pushing the button, they all move up together. Then, here's the upper ring. And I put that in so I can shout. You see the cables going down and the winch that pull up the lower ring. This is the position of the lower to upper ring with the hanging on the winch. And then finally we have these bars with here we go. We have these bars with electric jacks on them, and they're all synchronized, and with which we're stressing the structure, so that all the tents end up with the same stress. And the fabric throughout is stressed equally. See the scale, there's a guide of these things. And that's me standing in there. It's very stressing. And you can walk on this stuff. And it's very comfortable. It's the world's largest trampoline. You get used to that, like I guess a seaman in a boat. When you get back to the car, things seem very rigid and stiff. There's no resilience to it. Very monumental type structure, if you want. And when you imagine the length of one module is over 1,000 feet, the width is 450 feet. There are 10 of those, so you get almost 5,000 feet in the length of that. There'll be two rows of those things marching along, or standing there while you march through. So the monumental impression must be by far outdoing anything the Egyptians ever created. There, but it's a very impressive structure. And the important thing is the underneath thing. The feel underneath is very beautiful. The main thing is, to me, the environmental impact of it. You walk out of the sun, under the structure, and it is just a sense of relief. Exactly the way you feel when you come out of a field on a hot day into the woods. Just the same feeling of going into the woods. Generally, there's always a breeze underneath that because of the openings on top there. The center holes are open up there. So there's a really effluence through all the time. Okay. Here it is on my hand. And sitting out of the desk. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens in the future with this building because we've learned that most of these buildings were created differently from what they were used for afterwards. Pontiac Stadium was a total flop in the beginning because it just couldn't make money. Until they learned that a structure like that can be used all the time. And now they're doing many, many things in it, and it's making money. And every one of those structures we find begins to change its use because it suddenly kind of offers things that you can do with it. And I have a feeling that it just isn't going to be used a few days a year eventually for the pilgrims of the Hajj pilgrims. Somehow I think some use can be found year-round for it. I don't know you. It's going to happen. Shot of the night. This gives you a scale. This guy walking around. That's tremendous scale. That's brownish. This changes color all the time because the sand sandstorm every day, and so the sand accumulates. It only rains once or twice a year, and once it rains, it cleans it off. The thought now is to build in sprinklers around the top banks to get the sand off. You can do them up, you can do them down, you can combine them. A few pictures of the structure. It's called Florida Festival. That's SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida. It is a structure that it also, I think, has to find its use. The idea is it's kind of a, I call it a controlled environment of some kind. But the idea is to have a space in that climate where things Floridian would be sold and exhibited and so on. And it has 38 stores and restaurants and things inside. It's next to the SeaWorld park, and I don't think it's found entirely its motives of functioning yet. But it began with this study model of mine. Here's the structure. It's one very large tent. And then the idea was in the two intersecting squares to have an upside down tent in the other one, but you would have ended up 40 or 50 feet below grade. In order to avoid that, we had to come up to mount the periphery of that reversed tent, and so they're the three small ones. And so it's actually a very tight geometry, but it evolves in quite a sculptural these are all tent-type structures, the same way radial tents as the Jetta project or as the Great Invention project. Simply radial cables arrange the fabric in the other direction. That's the principle that has proven pretty functional. If you have fabric in one direction, cable in the other, then you have two components that are very different in their stiffness. And it eliminates the problem of having to be too exact. If you have a two-way cable net, then you have components of similar stiffness, and the accuracy has to be just absolutely tremendous. If in a two-way cable net you make a slight error, you get very great changes in stress. And that doesn't happen with a fabric structure. And then, of course, we introduce the force by jacking. And so we actually bring the force in at the high point by introducing the force. And, so it's not something that is there simply by the shape we've given, but we've put it actually in and we can control it. Here's the finished structure. Unfortunately, it has these seams in it black. We've argued with the fabricator forever that there should have been light, but so you can read it a little more closely. Again, a big edge catenary over the entrances with a reverse piece of fabric on the inside. And here's the upside down part, and everybody was nervous about it initially. Gee, what's the rain going to do? Actually, the rain runs in. We have just a little bit of metal mesh around the periphery there. The water runs through it. It runs into a little pipe. And they're now installing a hose because people love it when it rains. It gives a nice feeling. So the rain drums out. One problem if you do anything that has to do with sound. We're just discussing a music tent, a new music tent for Aspen, and it is a problem. There's nothing you can do about it. So when the rain hits those things, it's just like a drum. And most people love it, but it's not going to help very much if you have a symphony going on. To have that drumming going on. But people especially enjoy standing in there because you are standing in the park. The water runs. So they're going to install a hose nest so that they can have rain whenever they like it. The other thing you see in this space is the plants. The idea is to have the Florida environment, which means subtropical climate. Of course, it had to be subtropical plants. So we work with KimFab to get as translucent a material as we could get for that strength, in which case we get about 16% translucency. And you see what flows in. And since I've had a lot of people going, there's a virtual pilgrimage going on these days to start a festival. Among the people that I'm working with right now is from Vermont down to South Carolina to work with people on a botanical garden. And the horticulturists from Kiley Gardens been up in for the festival, and they tell me the plants are all in excellent shape. That they're over half a year in there now. They would show if they did not have enough light. And they were all surprised that 16% light, these plants would do so well. Now, these are palm trees that really require a lot of light. And we have many species. The feel in the space, if you ever get down there, this is the best one to get the feel for. It is not quite indoors, but it's also not quite outdoors. It's kind of a new thing. But it is a feel, as you can see. See, back there is much darker, over here is much lighter. So there's a real feel like a sky. Nature is there. You know the sun is there. You know a cloud goes over. Those things are really there with you, and yet you are in a protected environment. And that's why this species is very interesting. What I would like to apply it for, and I've worked with 2 cities so far, we haven't got the money yet to do it, is one is Flint, Michigan, to get some of Main Street downtown enclosed in that kind of a structure to counteract the effect of the malls and to bring people back into these downtown areas and street. I mean, cities like Flint, of course, have a lot of snow in the winter and tremendous amount of heat in the summer. To do that kind of thing would, I think, make it possible to get people back, bring stores back, and bring pedestrian traffic back. That's inside Florida Festival. The only complaint I've had from somebody is there's too much light in there. The reflectivity, the evening sky. There you see the translucency reversed in the night. These glow. And so they're very light, very large light fixture. That was the night before the opening day. I came in the evening and I thought I'd go crazy when I saw this light coming through. And now we find many, many new applications for this material. And we're looking at large storage areas. And a little climber is a tent for use for orchestras. 2,000 seats underneath, other seats beyond. The use of A-frames overhead rather than arches. Very many different uses that we can pick on. One of the exciting things that's happened in the last half year is that we've come to a new material, silicon-coated fiberglass, which most likely is going to be the material that will take us the next step, because the material is much cheaper and much easier to handle. And I think those are the next things that have to happen, is that the materials have to be less expensive. And then the technology has to be simplified. I've been hoping for ways in which we can bring this beyond to certain pictures. How we can bring this technology out so that people can use it. That people can work with it, that it is not an obstacle for people for it to be so difficult in a sense that only a few people can apply it and use it as a design. The few hints I can give is the first thing is you cannot use pencil or paper as the means of designing. You have to simply go to stretch fabric, whatever it is. You have to go into 3 dimensions, work with it, play with it. And actually what a piece of stretch fabric shows you, with a few cables, with a few pins, you can get very close to what you can do in reality. And it's a real starting point. I hope that beyond that we can get to the point where we can get the actual design technology down so that it's usable for architects and engineers. They don't have to come to specialists. It's a real concern that I have to see how can we avoid becoming a bottleneck in a development that we think is a very exciting one that could make a significant contribution. And thank you.